And we are live for episode number 33. I can't believe we've made it this far. Incredible. I had a loose goal to do 100 episodes, or like reach 100 episodes in 2025. All of a sudden it's March, and you start thinking, hold up, let's do the math on that. Okay, 60, roughly 65 more episodes, maybe 70 episodes at the time that I made that goal. We got maybe 10 months left so 7 episodes per month. So we're talking nearly 2 per week. Yeah, I think we've lowered my barrier, lowered the goalposts a little bit, shifted the goalposts a little bit closer. And we're just going to try for one every week, maybe every 10 days. I think that's a little bit better. That way it's not, I don't know, too spammy. We maintain the quality. And lately I've been having some guests, which I know all of you are, you've been seeing, and that's been a ton of fun. The last episode was Mateo, who is just so brilliant with his practical strategies for fitness and nutrition. And before that, I was so excited to have Amanda Thebe on. She is a menopause expert. She's been in the Oprah magazine. She's been on all kinds of different news organizations. So to have her as a friend, as a colleague, but also to have her hop on my podcast was just so exciting, and a bunch of great guests recently. So I hope you've all been enjoying the guest. And today's guest is non-existent. It's just me. It's just me today. And Maddie isn't even here today. She is wrangling Milo, our son. If you did not know, he is just recently turned 8 months old, and we are absolutely loving being parents. So she's just kind of, tackling that right now. And I figured I can handle this. I should be able to do this alone. We've done only one solo episode in the past, and I didn't think it was that bad. I did get some positive feedback on it, no negative feedback. It's rare that somebody would reach out and be like, hey, that wasn't good, although that would be interesting. I think I've gotten it before, but usually it's from people who don't really like me and haven't been following me for a while. Most of you are very kind. But I think it does take something a little bit special and almost deranged to be able to talk for 30 or 45 or, God forbid, 60 minutes straight. And I also think, listener, that you might be a little bit deranged for actively wanting to consume this content for however long this episode ends up being when it's just me talking. I hope that I will be able to give some time to breathe, not just me, but also you, that I'm not just straight up rambling. But anyway, today we have a Q&A episode. Every week on my Instagram, on Tuesday, on my Instagram story specifically, I open up an anonymous question box where people can answer or ask questions. I have never missed a question unless it's like something, not so... Like, unless somebody's being intentionally mean, which has only happened a few times, it's fine. Like, it's okay. But like, don't do that. I'm not welcoming that. I think though, if you've actively searched out my podcast and you're listening to this episode, you are not that type of person. If you are, and you're just hate listening to this, I hope you have a good day. Okay, so today's questions. There will be timestamps for all these, but I just kind of want to briefly cover them so you know what you're getting into. So first is how important is sleep? This person has a newborn and is asking, at what point is it better to sleep than work out? The second question is, how much muscle should someone expect to lose if forced to rest for 6 weeks due to surgery? The next question is, sometimes I'm getting bored of lifting weights. What do you do about that? The fourth question is, can maintenance calories change if nothing else has changed, like movement or diet? Because this person notices that they are gaining and nothing else has changed except being 1 year older. Fifth question is, the stomach seems to be the last place to lose. They want to see their abs, but doesn't really want to continue in a calorie deficit. So it's a pickle. I got some advice for that. And then the final questions, we have 6, 7, and 8 are, can you really grow muscle with one hard set per week? Should you worry about water weight if you're focused on fat loss? And do I have a recommendation on water intake? Okay, so if any of those sound especially interesting, feel free to skim ahead. Otherwise, if you're listening to this just all the way straight, more power to you. I'm equally happy. Actually, I'm more happy because that means that you've increased my watch time, my listen time. So um, if you haven't skipped ahead yet, I like you more than the people who have skipped ahead. Okay, standard plugs. If you want to work with me, I highly recommend my one-on-one and soon-to-be group coaching program, not training only, but group coaching program, the Change Project. The Change Project was originally set up as a one-on-one program, and I have just kind of seen, over my years of coaching one-on-one, the impact that you can have on somebody's life when they are given some direction, you know? And I don't want to get too egotistical about that. And I think, um, yeah, I just don't want that to come off that way. But I've been really grateful for the connections that I've made and the people that I've worked with. And I always wanted more than just a group training program. And I have Forward Forever, obviously. And Forward Forever has been awesome. I highly recommend that program as well. That is with Danielle, the dietitian. That's a very successful program. And one of the things that I wanted to start to emulate from my one-on-one coaching and try to systemize a bit so that it can be scalable is helping people with habit change and identity change. And not identity change like, I'm going to take you, Sue Smith, to now be Sarah Marshall. I don't have that power, That's not. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna ask you for your social security number and help you change that. That's not. This is not a witness protection program, but it is more along the lines of those narratives that we tell ourselves. The things like I'm lazy, or I'm a forgetful person, or maybe the more positive things. Maybe it's like, um, I always remember my friends' birthdays, or I am a fitness person. I'm somebody who cares about I'm a family person. They can be more negative and more positive, and that depends on what it is and the framing of it. But let me put this into a different light. And this is an example I got from the book Atomic Habits. It is, if somebody is trying to give up smoking and somebody says, hey, asks, hey, do you want a cigarette? And the person who's trying to give it up gives two different responses. The first response is, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. And the second response is, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. The second person is more likely to stick with that because they are now changing their identity. They are changing the behaviors that they identify with. And so how do you change your identity? Well, and this is again from the Atomic Habits book by James Clear, highly recommend that book. You prove it to yourself. And you do this with almost like a democracy with votes. And you continually vote for the person that you are trying to become. And these votes are called habits. So, with the Change Project and the changes to the Change Project that I'm making, at least, I'm adding the group component to it. I'm hoping to help people solidify that identity change through tailored habits. And it's something I'm very excited about. The systems that Maddie and I are creating for this are bananas. We have, I'm not kidding, we have a whiteboard in our living room, and just in the middle of our living room, where we are both sides. I mean, you see it if you're on video. You see the whiteboard behind me that looks crazy. It's the same thing in our living room. We're just, it's insane. It's crazy, and I'm so grateful and excited for this project because I genuinely think it's going to help a lot of people. And that's, I think anybody who's in this industry, the fitness and nutrition, kind of like coaching in general, I mean, you get into this because you want to help people. And one-on-one coaching, the limit on that is my time and money. Not my money, your money. Because it has to be expensive. Because if I charged $50 a month for one-on-one coaching, well, I would just have too many clients and I wouldn't be able to give them all the same quality that they deserve. And so I need to increase my pricing to manage that, right? To take care of my time, but also to manage my workload. So anyway, really excited for the Change Project group. That'll be launching in the next 2 to 3 months, and it will be replacing the A Team, my group training program. We will be on a new platform. Anybody who is currently in the A Team will be grandfathered in. And the price for the Change Project group, it's going to be very competitive with a lot of the current offerings out there. I can promise you one thing, that if you are looking for training only, because there will be some tiered pricing for people who are just interested in different things. If you are looking for training only, it will be cheaper than what I am currently charging, but it will be on a better platform. Charging for the A Team, it'll be on a better platform, and it will have more. There's a lot more stuff. I could have found a better word, but there's a lot more stuff that you'll get along with it. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think that covers what an intro. It's quite an intro. One more thing that I always like doing is I always like saying what I'm watching or reading or playing lately. So what I'm watching, Severance Season 2. The final episode is nearly upon us for Season 2. It's been absolutely incredible. Still my favorite TV show of all time. Granted, we're 2 seasons in. We could end up having a Game of Thrones situation where the early seasons are fantastic and then the latter seasons are a complete letdown. I doubt that's going to happen just because of, I just don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to continue riding this high. I am reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. Really, really good. Really good. I had kind of looked at like the SparkNotes versions in the past and watched videos on it, but I had never taken this time to actually sit down and read it. Highly recommend it. I understand why people talk so highly about it. That is a phenomenal book. And I am playing World of Warcraft. The Season 2 just recently dropped, and my guild is currently working on the Season 2 heroic raid called The Liberation of Undermine, where we are battling the goblin mobster named Gallywix, and we are attempting to free the goblins of his cruel reign. I am a Beast Mastery Hunter, and I also have a Protection Warrior that I've been loving lately. Yeah, if you guys did not know that I was that nerdy, now you know. All right. Thanks for listening to all that good stuff. If you are interested in the Change Project group, just shoot me a message, whether it's email or Instagram, or anything like that, and I can send you over a link to kind of like get early notice for when it goes live. But we're looking at about maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. That's my optimistic time frame. 4 to 8 weeks. 4 would be very optimistic, and probably more like 6 to 8 weeks when that goes live. The A Team won't immediately shut down. We will continue that for a little while on its current platform. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to message me. Yeah. Okay, let's get into the questions, everybody. First, how important is sleep? I'm currently getting anywhere from 2 to 6 hours with a newborn. At what point is it better to sleep than work out? Yeah, this is a really good question. As somebody who has recently had a newborn, Milo's only 8 months old right now. I understand that this is a trade-off. I think there are a lot of times where people can say, oh, I hate the phrase, we all have the same 24 hours. I do understand where people are coming from in general, when they say that, but we don't. Like, do we all have the same 24 hours? Okay, sure. Yeah, you got me there, right? But there are certain things that are going to occupy or not occupy those 24 hours that are more or less mandatory of us. Taking care of a child. You can't just slop that one off. If you have a job, that, what are you going to do? Tell your boss, hey, I'm not coming in today. I want to hit legs. That's not happening, right? And what if you have a job that is an hour away, and you need to commute? And what if you have your daughter's dance recital or your son's basketball practice or vice versa? I'm not trying to put the gender norms on sports or anything like that. You have your son's dance recital and your daughter's basketball game. There we go. Either way, right? We all have 24 hours, but they are not the same. And I think anybody who can, rationally think that out, that makes logical sense. So My first advice would be to take care of yourself. If you are sleeping 2 to 6 hours, now 6 hours, not so bad. That's, I mean, in the newborn world, that's actually not so bad. But yeah, sleep is very, very important. When we start lacking sleep, we are going to notice a few things. First, obviously, we're going to be tired. This one makes sense, right? But we're also going to notice, and this has been researched. I'm sorry that I don't have the link in front of me, the PubMed ID or anything like that in front of me. I wish I did have that, but I don't. But so you just got to trust me on this one. And I think this also anecdotally would make a lot of sense to a lot of you that when we are sleep deprived, we typically eat more. So, if I don't, where do I want to go with this? Because I don't want to say that my goals are not yours to choose, or sorry, vice versa. Your goals are not mine to choose. Well, I mean, I guess that works either. I guess that works either way. You don't tell me what my goals are, and I won't tell you what your goals are. And I actually make that very clear with every person that I talk to when they're asking for some kind of guidance, whether it's a one-on-one client or somebody asking me, I don't get to decide what your goals are, but I'll help direct you to them. My friend Jordan Lips frequently says, "You are the driver, I'm the GPS," and I think it's just perfect. You're deciding where we're going, but I'll tell you how to get there. That's perfect. So, is weight maintenance or weight loss a goal? If it is, then sleep could be pretty important, and maybe I would prioritize that. Now, that said, is muscle growth a goal? Well, then we can't really get away from working out. There was a study that I quoted, or that I used to reference a while back, and it basically took two groups of people, and they were told to maintain like their same routines. I don't remember it perfectly, but the gist of it is one group slept 1 hour less per night. And then on the weekends, they were told they could sleep ad libitum. Basically, they were allowed to sleep as much as possible to see if there was kind of like any catch up, effect. And they were also put on like a weight loss diet. Now, the sleep restricted group lost about 80% of weight as lean mass and 20% as fat mass. And the non-sleep restricted group lost about the opposite. So they lost 80% from fat mass and 20% from lean mass. Now, obviously, you want the latter. You want to lose more fat mass and less lean mass if, changing your body composition in the terms of less body fat, more muscle are your goals. And this used to be one of the studies that I pointed to and thought like, hey, sleep is really important. Look at this. 1 hour sleep restriction had drastic consequences. However, Greg Nuckols, who is, and I'm not kidding, he is probably the most brilliant man in the industry. I'm not willing to debate that with anybody because they're just wrong if they try to debate me on that. Greg Nuckols is super smart. He's of strongerbyscience.com, created that. Also created Macro Factor. Anyway, he did a long dissection on sleep, and I think it was podcast form. He might have written about it too, but I believe it was podcast. And one of the critiques he had in that study that I honestly kind of glossed over was they did not have a training program. What's the single greatest stimulus for muscle growth? Is it sleep? No. Is it food? No. Is it calories or protein? Those things help, but is it the single greatest determinant of or stimulus for muscle growth? No. What is it? Training, lifting weights, taking sets close to failure, right? So here's the thing. I think if somebody was lifting weights, that they would experience muscle growth and definitely at least muscle maintenance, even if that their volume, the amount of sets that they did went way down. So what I'm trying to get at here is for this person who has a newborn and is wondering, is sleep better than a workout? I'm going to say, what if we tried both? However, we shift the goalpost. We lower your barrier to working out. We make it a lot smaller, and we do maybe a 15-minute workout. Maybe you do a push, a pull, a squat, and a hinge. You do that once per week, maybe one set each, maybe twice per week, right? But you just do one set each of those. You are going to maintain, if not grow muscle with just that. Just make sure your sets are hard. Now, are you going to have this crazy, overwhelming amount of muscle growth with, one set per muscle group, like across 4 exercises? No, you're not going to be maximizing your muscle growth there. But the alternative is no muscle growth or losing muscle, right? So I would see if you can fit that 15-minute, that 10-15-minute session wherever you can. And maybe it's even something like, okay, I don't have the time today. Maybe I just do one set of push-ups or split squats before I shower or something like that, right? So, overall, just take care of yourself, do what you can, and just minimize the amount of work that you think you have to do. And also, pro tip, try to nap when the baby naps. It's just, even if you're not a good napper right now, change your identity, like I talked about at the beginning of the show. Tell yourself, if I can nap, if I nap once, then I'm a napper. Now I'm a nap person, right? Yeah, try to get as much sleep as possible though, in general, and take care of yourself. Hang in there. I'm 8 months in, and I'd love to say it gets better. I'm sure it will eventually. Right now, I think it already has. Yeah, I think it already has. Maddie honestly takes care of most of it. I was up at 4:30, and I walk in the nursery, and she's already there because she was up with him a little bit earlier. It's like, oh dang. Well, is there anything I could do? Nope. Okay, all good. All right. So yeah, hang in there. All right, next question. You've answered it before, but I can't find it. How much muscle should someone expect to lose if forced to rest for 6 weeks due to surgery? All right. So overarching, surgery is going to happen one way or another, right? It sounds like surgery isn't one of those things that's like it's not like heading down to Dairy Queen. Like, nah, I can skip Dairy Queen. Nah. Surgeries, that's pretty locked in. Sounds like, so, and the reason I'm saying this is when things can't change, well, this is going to sound obvious, but we can't change them. And so we can change how we react to them, right? And so overall, I would embrace this, know that, okay, yeah, I cannot, I have to rest for 6 weeks. How can I make the most of it? And maybe that is just focusing on something else for a little while. Maybe it's reading a few books. Maybe it is enjoying one of your hobbies for a little while. But I'd try not to worry about it too much because, well, it's just going to happen, right? However, 2 things that may be helpful to understand is we don't really see muscle loss for 2 to 3 weeks of inactivity. So you're talking about half that time, you're probably not going to experience any muscle loss. The muscle loss that you do, I should say the lean mass that you do experience, at least as far as the research goes, is it actual muscle loss or is it muscle size loss? Like, is the muscle tissue going away or is it the size? And the difference here is maybe the muscle is less hydrated, or maybe the muscle is storing less glycogen. As muscle is a big storage tank for glycogen, which is stored carbohydrates. So when we see muscle size decreasing, especially if some days maybe, or some weeks, it's days more than weeks really, but if you eat low carb for a few days, just whether intentionally or unintentionally, and you notice like, my muscle feels kind of flat. Like I don't feel as big as I normally am. Like muscles, just feel flat. It's probably just a change in glycogen, So, all right. So that's part 1 is we don't really experience much muscle loss for 2 to 3 weeks. And even after that, it's very, very, very slow. Now, the other part of this, the other positive here, there's something called muscle memory. Sorry if you can hear my dogs. There's something called muscle memory, and this is sometimes also called myonuclear domain theory. And the idea here is that when you lift weights and grow muscle, there are satellite cells that can be used for a variety of different things in your body. These satellite cells can go and be part of the muscle now. And so they become myonuclei, or they become a muscle cell, I should say. And when the muscle then shrinks, if there's a time of detraining, whether due to injury or surgery or whatever, if there's a time of detraining, the myonuclei stick around. So the nucleus of the muscle cells stick around. It doesn't, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know if research is very sure if they permanently stick around, or like forever, for our entire life, or if they stick around for just a long time. But as far as I know, it's somewhere between those two things. They either stick around for a long time or they stick around forever. And I think I remember hearing that it was more toward they stick around for a long time rather than absolutely forever. But anyway, when the myonuclei are there, the ones that have stuck around, this makes muscle regain much, much faster than the initial muscle growth. I don't love to throw out numbers in terms of muscle growth, but let's just say maybe 2 to 3 times as fast as you gained it the first time. So any muscle loss that you've lost across 6 weeks, I mean, you return to training, you could have that back in 1 week, 2 weeks maybe. It's going to be so instant. So I really wouldn't put too much stock into it. All right, next question. Sometimes I'm just getting bored of lifting weights, but I know it's good for me to do. However, when I'm getting bored, I don't push as hard. Any tips? So yeah, I do have a few tips. First, boredom, it's kind of normal, right? Like, I hate to say it, but boredom is kind of normal, kind of expected, especially with stuff that isn't super stimulating or exciting. Brushing my teeth, I wouldn't say is a riveting activity. Paying my taxes, it's tax season if you're listening to this in March or April. Paying my taxes, definitely not super fun, but the IRS is, I'm sure, intently listening to this podcast. And they're like, hold up, be a good guy here. So I do pay my taxes anyway, right? Even though it's not fun or exciting. And I use these examples kind of tongue in cheek, but also, sometimes we do have to focus on the outcome and rather than the process itself. I know everybody says, oh, fall in love with the process. But what if you hate the process? How many times do I have to tell somebody, well, not me necessarily, because I don't really say that, but how many times does somebody have to be told, oh, you just have to fall in love with the process, until they're just like, all right, well, maybe weightlifting just isn't for me because I don't love it. I think that is a short-sighted approach from a lot of trainers, because weightlifting is something that we all benefit from in such a just massive way, physically and mentally, maybe too. Maybe there is some, obviously for a lot of people there is a benefit of lifting weights and pushing yourself and proving to yourself that you can do hard things and all that, but and the dopamine release, of course. But from a physical standpoint, lifting weights is one of the closest things we have to the fountain of youth. I mean, it is so beneficial for us. So, and I know this person said, he or she said in this question, I know it's good for me to do. But when they get bored, they don't push as hard. So yeah, I get it. Another thing here is you don't need to necessarily push all the way to failure to see muscle growth. Close to failure works. And 2 RIR, like 1 to 2 RIR, sees pretty similar muscle growth to 0 RIR. There was one study that said basically the same results. A meta-analysis by the guys at Data Driven Strength, Josh Pelland and colleagues. They found that the closer you get to failure, the greater the stimulus is. I've talked about that over and over again in previous episodes. But that does also incur a higher fatigue cost. So you just kind of have to balance how well is somebody recovering? What are the recovery practices like? Are they sleeping well? The newborn person maybe don't do 100 sets per week all the way to failure, right? That'd be hard to recover from. So, but the reason I'm bringing this up is training to 2 RIR is a breeze, in my opinion, compared to 0 RIR. Those last 2 reps, oh my gosh, they get so much harder. I mean, that's the point, right? Is you're getting close to failure. So it should get exponentially harder. And so I think, just having that understanding of Well, yeah, I mean, I am a little bit bored today, or I'm not as excited to train today, that I can kind of leave, one or two reps in the tank, and I'm still getting a huge benefit from this. I'd also consider maybe switching some training styles. Maybe trying some supersets, see if that spices it up, or at the very least, a superset, makes it a little bit shorter, so it's not feeling like a slog as much. Maybe try things like drop sets. And I know you had just said that when you're getting bored, you don't push as hard, and drop sets are an intensity technique. If you're unfamiliar, a drop set would be where you would take a weight, do a number of reps until you get very close to failure, all the way to failure, probably all the way to failure, and then you reduce the weight and continue the set. So let's say I'm doing, bicep curls, right? Let's say I'm doing 40-pound bicep curls. I do as many reps as I can, can't get another, drop the weight. Maybe I go to 30 pounds, 20, 25, something like that. And I try to get a few more reps, as many as I can. That would be a that would be an intensity technique, and maybe makes it more fun. Maybe makes it a little bit more miserable. That's I think that's up to you to decide. And maybe try messing around with rep schemes. Maybe if you've been constantly at uh, 8 to 12 reps, for example, maybe you try dropping it to 5 to 8, or maybe you go 12 to 15. I personally find that training heavier with lower reps is a little bit more enjoyable for me personally, but I think that is person dependent. Another thing you could try is maybe focusing on a goal, like a PR in a certain exercise. How much can you split squat, or how many push ups could you do in 60 seconds? There are different things like that that you could try out. And I think that's one of the main allures, not main allures, but yeah, and a major allure to things like powerlifting, where you're doing a barbell squat, barbell bench press, and barbell deadlift. Seeing those numbers rise over time is very motivating. It's very exciting. I think that's those movements, those kind of compound barbell movements, are a lot of people's first foray into weightlifting. And it was mine. It was mine for sure. I had a barbell and a squat rack in my mom's basement, and just barbell, squat, bench, and deadlift, and I just did those three things, and sometimes did some other movements, but that was the most of it. It wasn't the most efficient training, but it was fun for me and one of my best friends growing up, and we would do that 3-4 times a week. We really enjoyed it. The next thing I would say is swap out movements that are feeling stale. If you are sick of doing deadlifts, for example, or if you're sick of, like, let's say you're sick of doing stiff leg deadlifts. Okay, some bad news. If you're at home, it's a little bit tougher to train the hamstrings, when you just have dumbbells. But if you're at a full gym, man, go do some seated leg curls. For some reason, I I at least don't hate. I kind of love both seated leg curls and leg extensions. I think partially just because I get to sit down. Like, yeah, they're really painful. They're like they torch your quads and hamstrings, right? But I just like them. I don't know. I don't mind pushing myself on those. So maybe see if there's any movements that are feeling like, especially like, oh god. Sometimes that's split squats for me. Sometimes that's hack squats for me. But yeah, those are some things I'd recommend. And maybe honestly, it just came to mind. But if you are currently at home, maybe try out a gym once a week. Go get a membership at Planet Fitness. It's $10 a month. Try out just lifting at the gym once a week. Try out some new machines. That kind of new the new equipment can make it very exciting, because there's a bit of novelty there. So that's something I would do. Some other things I would do is maybe train with a friend or hire a coach. Maybe they'll be able to, training with a friend. It's always nice. Just conversations just flowing. That makes the time fly by. You kind of motivate each other too. Some high fives here and there, some pats on the back, and maybe you could hire a coach and get some personalized workouts built for you. That I think can be nice because it pushes you outside of your comfort zone, and you also ideally learn from the coach, maybe whether it's new movements or about fitness or nutrition. And I think a lot of times education about a certain topic can make you appreciate that topic a lot more. For my wife, she really went down the rabbit hole of fiber. I mean, really went down the rabbit hole of fiber and reading research on that and reading books on that. And anyway, um, now that is one of the things that she really prioritizes, where she kind of always did have a very healthy eating pattern. Now she is specifically pointing out trying to get a variety of fiber sources because she's now understanding of the importance of fiber diversity, and she actually likes talking to other people, like her parents, for example, about fiber. Like, she's not going out with her friends and being like, have you guys tracked your fiber recently? I think it's really important. You should definitely, like, that's not I mean, I don't know. Maybe she is. Maybe she is. I don't know. I don't go out with her and her friends, so maybe that is something they do. Anyway, the last tip here would be listen to a podcast or maybe watch a show when you're working out, and only when you're working out. And this is something called temptation bundling. You match one habit that you like to do with one habit that you should do or have to do. And so, for example, maybe this is, for me, maybe this is cycling or some kind of cardio. Maybe I listen to a show or a podcast or some kind of Netflix or, whatever series. Maybe it's that while doing some cardio. Or for one of my clients, it was actually a husband-wife client that I had. They lived up in Canada. I asked them, what does their gym look like? And I worked with them for like 3 years. And eventually I asked them, is it possible to put a TV in your gym? They had a basement gym. And I mean, it was like light bulbs went off. I said, I know you have your favorite shows. So could you watch your favorite shows while you work out? And I swear that was the perfect idea for them, because then they actually enjoyed it. They saved their shows for the workout times. They would turn them off after they were done. And that was, this was temptation bundling in real life. This is exactly what it looks like. I'd also consider making your environment a little bit more exciting, maybe. If you can paint the walls or dress it up a little, maybe put some speakers in there, maybe put some fancy little lights. Like I just, redid my gym. I have a YouTube video on that. If you're curious, just look up like Alex Teamy, gym redo or gym tour, I think, home gym tour, something like that. Anyway, it's on my YouTube. You'll be able to find it. I don't have that many videos. Yeah, I think that could be a good thing too. But okay, I think that sufficiently covers that question. Let's move on to the next one. Can maintenance calories change if nothing else has changed? Movement, diet, etc. I notice I'm gaining and nothing has changed except I got 1 year older. All right, so some bad news first. So baseline energy expenditure, maybe some good news, depending on how you look at it. Glass half full, glass half empty. Baseline energy expenditure / metabolism doesn't really decrease that much between ages 20 through 60. And this is from a recent study relatively recent study by Herman Poncer. I will link this one in the show notes if you're curious. But yeah, our baseline energy expenditure doesn't really change much until from ages 20 to 60. So with that said, you getting 1 year older and now gaining weight, it's not necessarily due to some kind of change in your, I don't want to, okay, let me put an asterisk here. It's not some major change to your baseline energy expenditure. There could be changes in your body that are influencing this, but maybe they are a little bit more subconscious. So, for example, maybe you are getting roughly the same amount of steps as before. Let's say you were tracking and you 8,000 on average, last year, and 8,000 on average this year. Okay, so steps are the same, but maybe you're leaning against stuff while you're standing, and this is subconscious, and you're just taking a little bit off and just reducing your energy expenditure so marginally in ways that you don't really notice. Maybe you are using your hands less when you talk. Maybe you're tapping your foot less. Maybe you're pacing around. Well, pacing around less would mean steps are lower. But anyway, maybe you are eating a little bit more, and this is subconscious. Maybe you're going out to eat a little bit more frequently. Maybe you're adding just a slight bit more sauce than you were tracking previously, if you were tracking. It's the small stuff that adds up over time, and it's very, very infrequently this one big thing that shifts, that changes the trajectory of our weight long term. We always do have to zoom out and look at weight long term. So where age can impact things is, well, first, if you are a woman and you are perimenopausal, there's a lot of things going on there. Now, does your baseline energy expenditure change? No, but if you are experiencing night sweats or trouble sleeping, I mean, both of these things obviously impact your sleep. Trouble sleeping, obviously, but night sweats too obviously impact your sleep. If you are sleeping worse, kind of go back up to that first question that we answered. You are going to be hungrier. You are going to be more tired. You're going to be moving less. You're going to have slightly worse muscle growth potentially. There's going to be a lot of things that are not in your favor. And, if you are experiencing, maybe it's not sleep, maybe it's just you are feeling not so happy mood wise, right? You're feeling kind of down in the dumps. Well, is your motivation to train or go for a walk or run, is that going to be as high? No. So there's a lot of things that menopause can impact. Direct baseline energy expenditure does not seem to be one of them as far as the research we have. However, there's obviously so many things that go into that it is short-sighted to just say that, like, no, nothing has changed, right? There's a lot of things, that go into that. So I would probably say that subconsciously something has changed, but you really need to. I think it's always important to just kind of play the hand you're dealt, and so take stock of where you're at right now. Try to decide where you want to be, and then create some action steps to help you get there. That's sort of broad, but I hope that helps. Okay, a few questions left. Stomach seems to be the last place to lose. I was starting to see abs at the end of the cut, but now I'm back to maintenance and don't anymore. I'm happy with the rest of the body. I almost feel too lean in some areas, and I'm worried if I lose more, I'll be too lean in other areas, but I really want to lean out my stomach. What would I do? All right, so this is normal. Fat distribution is genetic, and the stomach is pretty frequently the last place to lean out. That's obviously dependent person to person. Some people may have held in their hips or their thighs or their arms a little bit more, and their waist is the first place to lose. But I would say that stomach is pretty frequently the last place to lean out. So what would I do? Okay, a calorie deficit is out of the cards, right? Because you said you don't want to get any, you don't want to lose more. So a calorie deficit is out. And a calorie surplus is also out, because if you do that, then you're definitely not, you're going to be adding body fat slowly, ideally. And that means that the abs might not be as visible. Now, I could do this coaching thing that I think is a little too frequent or too common in the industry right now. And where it's, oh, abs are overrated. Don't worry about abs. Okay, I agree with that sentiment, right? I do think that for a lot of people, having visible abs is a lot of work to maintain, and it can be very uncomfortable, both getting there and maintaining that. However, once again, I think we should be goal agnostic. I don't think that it is my right to tell somebody what they should or should not want. That is up to you. That is up to the individual. And me telling you what you should or should not want, as somebody who has visible abs, should I tell you, no, you should not have visible abs. You should not want that. Why is it my choice to decide what you want? Sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's something really frustrating when coaches are shredded to the gills telling you that you shouldn't get lean. Why? Okay, so are you supposed to be some arbiter of good? You're the morality police, you're the ethics department, and you're going to monitor my body and what I want? I don't like that. And I get pretty annoyed when people say things like that. If you want visible abs, that's your prerogative. Do I think that you should have the education, the educated, whatever, the knowledge to understand what it might take to get there, because it is harder or easier for different populations? Absolutely. But if you start trying out at that, and you get the majority of the way there, something like that, and you decide, hey, this isn't for me. It's not like you're going to break something. You tried it out. Now you have the lived experience to see what it was like to get visible abs. And this is assuming you don't get visible abs. Maybe you do get visible abs and you say, this is great. I love the way I look. This is amazing. This is all it's cracked up to be. Because how can somebody decide what makes you happy? That's not their right. You get to decide what makes you happy. And I don't think it's correct to ever tell somebody you should or should not want this thing. As long as it's not like illegal. Because then if but having visible abs sure as hell isn't illegal. Right? So anyway, this is what I would do. Sorry for that little tangent, but this is what I would do. Since a calorie deficit is out and a calorie surplus is out, I'd probably sit at calorie maintenance. Maybe a very, very small calorie deficit to get a little bit leaner. But again, if you don't want to get any leaner, then that's not an option. Now, I will say, technically speaking, if you lift weights and you eat at maintenance, you're maintaining the same weight, but you're lifting weights. You are going to get leaner because muscle's going up, but you're maintaining weight. That means body fat has to come down. It'll happen very slowly. So, consider that. But that's probably what I would do is I would eat close to maintenance. I would train abs and I would make them the priority muscle. I would probably increase the volume and frequency that I'm training them with. So I would increase the number of sets and the number of days per week that I'm training them with. And I'd be very picky with exercise selection. I would not do bird dogs or planks or other dumb shit. I just posted today, the day of this recording, March 19th, I posted a thing on Instagram about this, swipe through post. I would train my abs like any other muscle. When we do biceps, do we hold a dumbbell right in front of us, like at a 90-degree elbow? Do we just hold it there? No, we curl the weight up and down, right? When we want to do a bench press or a push-up, do we just sit there? No, we push the weight up, down. When we squat, do we go down halfway and then sit there? No, we squat up, squat down, right? Up and down. These dynamic movements through a range of motion. And we're taking these sets close to failure. Why do people train their abs any differently? It's insane to me. It's absolutely baffling to me that people, they'll do real hard workout, 2 sets of this, 3 sets of that, 4 sets of this, they'll do a hard workout. And then they say, oh, I got to do ab finisher. I got to go do an ab circuit. What the hell are you talking about? Train the abs like any other muscle. Seriously, please do 2 to 4 sets. You can do more or less. It's fine. Just context, contextual, but do some sets, take it through a range of motion with resistance if necessary, and close to failure. Take your sets close to failure. And if you have to do like 30, 50 reps to get close to failure, pick a different exercise or figure out how to load it. Some exercises that I recommend for the abs, machine ab crunches. If you're in a gym and you have a machine ab crunch, great. Gold standard. Love that exercise. Love that piece of equipment. Amazing. Cable crunches, awesome for those of us who have a home gym and cables. I like setting up 2 D handles on a single thing. So instead of like the rope handle, with the rope handle, as weight gets heavy enough, it starts to just get really uncomfortable. So I do 2 D handles. Bench ab crunches, which again, check out the post from today, March 19th. And there's a video of that and how to progress it on my Instagram page. And then gar hammers. Phenomenal exercise. If you just have an adjustable bench, you could do bench ab crunches with just an adjustable bench too, or even non-adjustable actually. But gar hammers are great as well. I do have YouTube, or I do have exercise demos for all of those on YouTube. If you're curious, you just type in the exercise name, my name, you'll get it. And then, there are other exercises. This is not an exhaustive list, but yeah, I think hanging leg raises or knee raises can be good. Just depending on your execution. I'm going to make a post on this tomorrow because somebody asked a question about it. So March 20th, check that post out if you're curious about how to do a hanging leg raise or knee raise without getting too much hip flexor and getting more abs. It's mainly just in the hip rotation, less about bringing your legs up, more about rotating the hips. Anyway, yeah. I guess just overarching thought, I did have that tangent earlier, but like evaluate if visible abs is worth it to you. For me, I'm going to be honest, it frequently is. Call that shitty, call that body dysmorphia, call that whatever you want. I don't care. You and me may have different goals, and that's a-okay. It's fine. Some people want to be a billionaire. Some people want to have a Lamborghini. Some people want to live in the mountains. Some people want to travel to every country. Some people, and it's not right for us to say what goals are better or worse because they get their own life and they get to experience it the way that they want to experience it. All right, let's move on. Can you grow muscle doing one really hard set per week? Say one set of calf raises or one set of pull-ups to failure. So one singular hard set, I'm not sure. If you're a beginner, probably. I'll say like probably. But if you've been lifting for a year or more and you've been lifting consistently, I think muscle growth, if it did happen, would be very, very, very slow. I think you would maintain probably muscle with one hard set per week, but I think growth would be very, very slow. Maybe still there. My hunch is that it would still be there, but it would be very slow. Yeah. Now, if you did this kind of routine, let's say you did one set to failure, and you had like maybe a workout that had like 5, 6, 7 different exercises. You do one set each. You do that 3 times per week. I would be a lot more confident that you'd grow. A lot more confident. A lot more confident that you're going to grow muscle. And it'll still be kind of slow because the volume isn't as high. But the first set is going to be the most stimulative, and we get diminishing returns as we go, right? So I think if everybody could do like this kind of workout where they do like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes absolute tops. They do that 3 times per week. I think you'd be shocked what you could do, what you'd accomplish in 6 to 12 months. I really do. There's a dose response relationship between sets and muscle growth. So as you increase that set, or the number of sets per week, you will get better muscle growth. But again, yeah, diminishing return. So you kind of have to figure out where's that sweet spot of enjoyment versus burnout, And that also changes as seasons of life and literal seasons. For me in the gym, it's cold in Michigan. Not right now. It was 60 today, which was great. But, like we're talking -10, 0 degrees. And the gym out there in the garage is like 30, 20, 30 degrees. It's tough to train in sometimes. I do have a heater out there, which is nice, but it costs a lot to run. And sometimes, so sometimes I just throw on the winter jacket and just deal with it. For strength, one hard set per week is actually probably enough to see very slow improvements. Dr. Pack is a really, really good reference on this, that this is like all of his research, not literally all of his research, but a lot of the research that he is spearheading is covering, excuse me, the minimal effective dose, specifically for strength gains. But again, strength is different than hypertrophy or muscle growth. Those are, if you don't know, hypertrophy just means the increase of muscle size. So when we say that, it's muscle growth. Strength is different than that. There are a lot of factors that go into strength. Muscle growth is one of them, but so is like neuromuscular efficiency and limb length and muscle insertion. A lot of things that skill, a lot of things go into strength, but muscle growth is one of them. Anyway, I feel like I answered that one pretty well. So we have 2 questions left. Should I worry about water weight at all if I'm focused on fat loss, or will it all even out eventually? Yeah, don't worry about it. Do not worry about it. Fluctuations in hydration, or like how much water we have, can make the scale fluctuate 1 to 5 pounds, roughly 1 to 5 pounds, 0 to 5 pounds, I should say. And that's just water, not stomach content like food, So if you eat higher volume foods, like more fiber, for example, if I eat a pound of popcorn, which don't challenge me, I could probably do it. I'm going to weigh a pound more. Actually, one area that I would notice this a lot when I was really deep into a cut and was really trying to up the food volume was strawberries. I would eat, I'm not kidding, like a pound and sometimes 2 pounds of strawberries late at night. And so the next day, shocker, I'm going to be up a pound or 2. Now, I will say, when I did that, because strawberries are so full of water, I would have to pee so bad in the middle of the night. It was brutal. I mean, really brutal. Like, I would wake up and like immediately, like, it's not like I'm sprinting to the bathroom, but it was a little bit annoying that every night in the middle of the night, I'd have to wake up to pee. So, okay. Fluctuations in hydration make the scale fluctuate 0 to 5 pounds, right? And maybe more, maybe less, but let's just use that as a decent range. You might be able to lose somewhere between 60 to 130 grams of body fat in a single day, roughly. Maybe more, maybe less, but let's just use that as a decent range. This is about roughly 1/10 to 1/3 of a pound of body fat per day. Okay. So let's just use these ranges. 1/10 to 1/3 of a pound per body fat per day. I'll say a third of a pound of body fat per day. That's a lot. That would be, you'd have to have a lot of excess adiposity, a lot of excess body fat to be able to, and you'd be in a significant calorie deficit to be able to achieve that. Anyway, when the scale is fluctuating 0 to 5 pounds, let's say 5 pounds, and let's say you lose 60 grams of body fat, you're going to think like, oh crap, I must not be losing, body fat at all because the scale's up 5 pounds today. But no, it's just water weight. So what you need to do is you need to zoom out. You need to look at trends. This is why I always talk about weekly averages. You cannot look at individual days. You can't. There's nothing to be gained by looking day to day at your weight. Now, look, charting your weight, looking, like writing it down, throwing it into a spreadsheet, throwing it into an app, whatever. Doing that daily, I think that just builds a habit, gets you used to the fluctuations. And then over time, now you zoom out 2-3 weeks, then you can start to see that trend because you look at week one average. Let's say it's 150, right? And in between there, week one, you're 150, then you're 152, then you're 149, then you're 153, then you're 148, then you're 154. You know what I mean? It's going to ping pong up and down like crazy, right? But you zoom out, you look at the weekly average. Okay, great. Put that aside. Now start working on week two. Just don't even worry about the day-to-day stuff. You're 149, then you're 152, and you're going to be like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Nothing. It's a normal fluctuation. Relax. You keep going. 148, 147, 151. Oh my God, what did I do wrong? Nothing. Again, put it aside. Relax. Don't look at this weekly average until you get the full 7 days. I like at least 3 days of weight data before using it. And I would say like not the first 3 days, but like 3 days across a week is what I would recommend. Across a 7-day period is what I'd recommend at minimum before calling it like functional or usable data. But then you compare the week to week. Now you can start to see trends. And I really like comparing at least 2 weeks at a time, but sometimes even 3 weeks at a time because plateaus can happen, right? So, and the plateau is very frequently like you are losing body fat, but at the same time, your body's holding on to a little bit more water. So sometimes it's called the whoosh effect when all that water just drops out and you see like this big drop on the scale. But anyways, yeah. So these day-to-day fluctuations, don't worry about them. Zoom out, look at trends. It's important that you, for scale, for weighing yourself with the body weight scale, do it first thing in the morning after using the bathroom, before eating or drinking, and roughly at the same time every day, and wearing the same clothing. If that's just your underwear or whatever, great. Probably wouldn't do it in your underwear one day and then sweatpants and a hoodie the next day, right? Because you're going to be up like 3 to 5 pounds from that clothing. So, and make sure that it's on a like a flat, stable surface. I had a friend that was weighing himself. He weighed himself on tile sometimes, and other times he would move the scale and do it on carpet. And I was like, oh no, carpet, that will not give you an accurate reading. You got to do it on. So this is not something that I would have thought about until he told me that he did that. But yeah, just zoom out, weekly averages. I believe I do have a data weight sheet somewhere, like a free download that you could use. I'm not sure. I think I do. But if you're curious about that, just shoot me a message on Instagram or email me or something, and I'll get it to you. Okay. It'll be in the Change Project. Anyway, I'm going to give you guys an insane data sheet. I've been upgrading it like crazy. It's going to be it's so cool, you guys. It's so cool. I'm really excited. A lot of people like the data sheets that I've given out in Forward. And I upgraded a ton for my one-on-one clients. And then as I was, creating the Change Project group, I was like, you know what? Why don't we give this to them too? More power to them. Okay. Final question. Do you have a recommendation on water intake? So I don't. And the reason for this, a lot of people say like, oh, half your body weight in ounces or your body weight in ounces. I think those are kind of reductionist. Honestly, I don't want to be rude, but they are kind of reductionist. And the reason for that is because I do not know how sweaty you are. Sometimes I'm pretty sweaty. So my hydration intake would change then, right? What if you are in a humid environment? What if you're sweaty and in a humid environment? Oh my gosh, double whammy. What if you are sweaty in a humid environment and running a marathon? Do you still want half your body weight in ounces, or is it appropriate to drink a little bit more, right? What if you are conversely you're not sweaty, you're so dry and you are in an air conditioned office and you're not moving basically at all. Okay, and let's say you get a lot of your water intake from like fruits, and different foods. Okay, so then your water intake is going to be the same as the person who's super sweaty and running a marathon in the Amazon rainforest. Like, no, of course not, right? So that's why I don't recommend specific weight water targets, and instead, and this is actually a funny story. There's this researcher who is really big in the hydration space. Like that's his whole thing. He's done advising for Gatorade and all that. And his business card on the back of it is a urine color chart. And it's like clear, all the way clear. You're probably drinking too much water, and I'd be a little bit concerned about your electrolyte balance. We kind of want that to have a balance between the electrolytes in our system and the water that we're drinking. And if you're curious about electrolytes, you might be thinking like, oh, should I have an electrolyte pack? You're going to get electrolytes from your foods. So don't necessarily sweat it. If you are exercising and you're that person who is very sweaty in the Amazon running a marathon, they are going to want electrolytes for sure. If you are Nancy, who works in accounting and is not active, you probably don't need electrolytes. And these companies are trying to sell you on something that you do not need. And it could be counterproductive because maybe Nancy has high blood pressure, and having the excess sodium, the extra sodium from these electrolyte packets could be doing a disservice to her. So anyway, that's a little bit on electrolyte packets. So what I would say is look at your urine, right? If it's all the way clear, maybe ease up a little bit. If it is light yellow, you're good. Like that's where you want to be. If it's moderate or any darker, then I would up your water game. And I think the best way to monitor your water is just to have a water bottle nearby, and yeah, just keep it full, keep it nearby you, and then if you get thirsty, you drink. I know it sounds so simple, but this is like the most evidence-based approach to managing your hydration is just like keeping a water bottle, a refillable water bottle nearby you. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this solo episode. I can't believe I was able to talk for over 1 hour straight. I actually did surprise myself here. I did really enjoy doing this Q&A, and so I think I will do more Q&A episodes down the road. If you have a question that you'd like me to answer, please either email it to me or ask it in my Tuesday Q&A, and it might be featured in a future episode. Yeah, and be on the lookout for the Change Project. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning of the episode is it's going to be like archetype based. And what I mean by this is we've done a lot of digging and just like brainstorming, and we've selected 6 archetypes that we think will help people. So maybe you're the socialite, you love spending time with friends, going out to eat, enjoying social life events, but you don't want to feel like you're starting over every Monday. So we need to find balance that feels effortless, right? Maybe you're the high achiever, you constantly juggling responsibilities, your career, your personal goals, your social life. They demand your time, and you thrive on structure, but you need something that is flexible enough to fit into your packed schedule. You need, time efficiency. Maybe you're the caregiver. You've been putting your own needs on the back burner due to your family, your kids, your loved ones taking the priority before you prioritize yourself. But I think it's worth noting that when you feel your best, everyone around you benefits too. We also have the shift worker, the all or nothing thinker, and the self-improver. So if any of that sounds somewhat interesting to you, know that there's so much work and thought going down in the Teamy household, and we are so excited to share it with you. Yeah, just really can't wait. I hope we change a lot of lives. I really do. That's the goal here, is that we help as many people as possible. So anyway, without getting all dewy-eyed, talking about things I'm passionate about, I'll leave you there. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love if you would give it a 5-star rating. Subscribe if you haven't already. Love seeing the subscriber numbers climb, and it's just really motivating to see that because I do work very hard on this podcast. And if you really enjoyed this episode, please, shoot me a message. Tell me, hey, I liked it, or screenshot and share it on your Instagram story and tag me. That always means a lot, because that means that you like it enough that you're recommending it to other people. And when people, look, the best way to grow something is word of mouth. It is undefeated. When your neighbor's like, hey, I got this new shovel. I love it. You should try out this new shovel. It's actually a real life example. I did buy a new shovel, and one of my neighbors, I swear to God, 2 weeks later, I saw him have the same shovel. I was like, okay, great. I didn't actually do the word of mouth thing. I didn't tell them about it, but I think they saw me using it, and they were like, wow, that's great. So anyway, not gonna leech on you too much, begging you to share it or anything like that. But if you know somebody who might enjoy this podcast, I'd love if you told them about it. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and if there's anything I can do to help you out in your fitness and nutrition, just shoot me a message. I'm always happy to help. Okay, we'll leave it there. Take care, everybody.